Welcome to the Roniel and DaRon podcast show. I'm Roniel.
I'm DaRon.
There's a new movie coming out, and it's called Eternals. And I would like to know how you feel about that, because in some section or maybe sometime in the future, we definitely have to talk about some of the characters from Marvel and this whole multiverse thing, especially in a scientific way, because I know we discussed about how you felt about Loki. But I'm starting to really get concerned about the multiverse and how they think the multiverse should be and how it would really be in a scientific way, which is starting to get really crazy. And Eternals is supposed to kick off the whole multiverse thing before we get to Doctor Strange and all of that. So I'm interested in your thoughts about that. And have you read the comic books for Eternals before?
I've not read the newer ones that they're basing that off of. And actually, I'm a little concerned that the whole thing's going to wind up collapsing on them, because the logic to get a lot of this to fit has been very shaky so far. And I only see it getting worse and worse until all the wheels fall off that cart. All the wheels fall off that cart.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, a lot of it's not making sense to me, you know, and they're gonna have to bring this full circle because it's not making sense. And when they first started introducing it, I understood where they were going, and in the comic books, it kind of takes you in an adventure of where it's going. But in the movies, I think this goes back to Hollywood.
Yeah,
I just need to sit down with some actual physicists, some actual scientists, and some people who wrote the actual comic book and really stay true to that and make it make sense, because you have people who know about science, who are scientists, and they understand this shit, and you're going off and trying to add in this fictional shit, but you're trying to make it more real and down to earth, and it doesn't make sense.
Right.
It's like it's all over the place. Like,
right.
It makes entirely no sense. And how this is even working. And then the timeline thing it just makes no sense. I can go, we'll get back into that in a future episode, but we definitely need to talk about this. But I just definitely wanted to know what you thought about it. If you guys are interested in seeing it today, there will be a early showing today. If not, then you can wait Friday or Saturday until the movie comes out. And if you guys do see it, please let us know what your thoughts is, because we will probably talk about it sometime in the near future. But other than that, there's something that really been bothering me lately, DaRon, and I'm not sure well, I do know what some of the issues are, but I think some of the articles that explain some of the shortage in the security field, it's they don't really touch bases on what the real problem and then give a real good solution. They're just kind of like, I seen an article you were talking about the other day, like about the shortage, and it when I read the article, it didn't make sense. So we should touch bases on why there's a shortage, how to fix the shortage, and like where to go from there. Like, especially when we already talked about education on what you should do to get a good foundation to get into the field. But that's not stopping the issue of it being a shortage regardless. So there's a lot of people just not in, even coming into the field, but there are like a lot of other issues that play a part in that as well. So I'll let you kick off and give us your thoughts about how you feel about that and how we can fix this.
So it's funny because we do have a massive shortage. Actually, we need a large number of people who are actual professionals, have a passion for it, so that they can grow, just like any other field, especially a field that's mentally intensive, right? There are some fields that are physically intensive. Construction, for example. It's also mentally intensive, but it's generally more seen as physically intensive. Whereas with security, be it network, cybersecurity, IT security, system security, application security, whatever security you want to call it, and whatever little sliver of it you want to talk about, it is an incredibly cognitively demanding field that requires you to pull together a vast amount of resources rapidly within your mind on networking, on how CPUs operate, on how operating systems operate, how stacks are ordered, execution stacks are ordered, all of this other craziness. And I think part of the problem and part of the cause of the shortage is there's no clear pathway into computers, into computer security, IT security, cybersecurity, whatever you want to call it. There's no clear pathway. And that's because it's not an entry level thing. That's why salaries are so high. We talked about that before. And you add to that, I think a lot of people get burnt out real quickly because they're in it for the wrong reasons. They're in it for the money. They're in it for the power. And I'm going to be honest here. There is a lot of power if you want power in our field, because being able to go through and say, you will shut your system down, that's power. That's insane amount of power. You see that in the DoD. You see that in the government via FISMA and DISA and all of that other kind of stuff, where you can pool someone's authorization to operate, or ATO, so that they can no longer run. And you would pull it by going to the authorizing official and saying, this system is non-compliant, and it's so egregiously non-compliant, it's going to be cost prohibitive to get you there. And they're not listening, and they have no schedule, or they get a compromise. I saw this, and digital forensics is on their high horse because, well, we've got power now. So what do? They yank the system offline, and they keep it offline until they are happy. But they have no clue what it is to be happy, because they don't know enough about the vulnerabilities. They don't know enough about what they're doing. And I have seen this, and I have had to deal with it firsthand. So there is a lot of power to be had. And so you'll get these people who are either power hungry, or they're in it for the money, or they're in it for some other reason, or maybe they get pressured into it, or they think they might like it, but they're not quite certain. They enter the field, they get rapidly burned out, and they leave the field, or they just become yet another useless body.
So the burnout period, like, you have people that can get burned out who really are in the field for the right reason, and you have people that can get burned out who are not in the field for the right reason. Can you discuss those different people, those type of people, and what you see from that, and then how not to get burned out if you are particularly depending on what section or direction you go?
So for the people who are really into this field, I think a large part of the burnout comes from the shortage itself, where they're being pressured to do too much. You're working on everything and you're saving everyone. One of the big things that I have seen that is a hallmark for being the kind of person who would do well in this field is being, and this is going to sound real funny, and I'll get to why, being someone who gives a fuck, being someone who cares. And what I really mean is, so, you know, there's this stereotype that engineers and people in IT, they don't care. We're cold robots, right? Developers are painted with that brush. System administrators are painted with that brush.
Hey, and the list really goes on. Some developers that are like that, though.
There are. And there are some system administrators who are like that. And there are some engineers. But the truth is, by and large, the people who are actually successful in these fields, in any of STEM, in general, are actually incredibly caring, loving folks with who are emotionally complex. Do they fit in with standard society? No, because society misreads them. I don't know about you, but that's one of my biggest issues. I'm an incredibly passionate person, and I have had people misread that passion as anger. I could make a joke by the fact that that's, you know, oh, well, I'm Latino or any of that kind of stuff just because it's funny, but because that is a stereotype, that whole, you know, spicy hot tamale kind of deal.
I mean, yeah, I have a lot of different stereotypes for myself, you know, and it's crazy that a lot of people don't know that, you know, I really, as a person in this field, you know, we all have this issue with talking to people,
right?
Or wanting to talk to people, or this social anxiety and stuff like that. But in this field, you have to be good at doing that. And for some reason, I'm able to do both, even though, like, I don't like talking to people, but at the same time, I know I have to talk to people, and I'm good at doing that. But then they take that when you try to help as a negative thing, and that's the thing about security that sucks, is that you have to be the kind of enforcer on things in order to get things done, because people don't want to do it. And can be another part of burning out. Like, I've heard some guy say that he quit his job because it took a year to get somebody to do one thing.
Yeah.
Like it's a stressful thing. And there's a lot of ways people can get burned out, and people don't see it that way. We're really trying to help you. We're not trying to degrade you or, put down your baby.
Right. Right. Yes, we're not calling your baby ugly. I mean, that's exactly right. And we feel for, we do have empathy. And there's, just to further the point, there is a rampant stereotype, not just about STEM, but about men in general. Oh, well, they're cold, uncaring, all this other stuff. And that's patently untrue for most. If you are unfeeling, if you are uncaring, then that's actually psychopathy, which which is an actual disorder, and you need to receive the appropriate help.
Yeah, you need to go get some help real fast.
Yes, that's exactly right. But that's the thing is, so let's say you're a very caring individual. Well, that makes it harder for you to say no when someone's crying out for help. When someone's going through and saying, my system got horribly compromised, I don't know what to do. When someone's saying, I have these vulnerabilities and I don't know how to fix them. I need someone to examine my code and I can't find someone. I need someone to help me figure out how to resolve this issue. And that's caring, but it's not. So we saw an individual who was off helping these teams, but he was doing it wrong. Because rather than caring so much that you want to fix the issue, he wanted to help you resolve it in any way possible, in the easiest way possible. So, for example, in a big management meeting that was designed to move forward on the next quarter, he told them that they didn't have to fix any of their security vulnerabilities when they had critical and high security vulnerabilities. Now, why he said this? The best, being nice, the best I can come up with is he was attempting to alleviate their pressure, but in fact that actually only made them more anxious because they already were aware that they had these critical issues. Not only did it make them anxious, it made their management utterly furious, and I had to come and fix that. So
basically, he didn't know what he was doing.
He didn't know what he was doing.
He didn't know what he was doing. And here's another thing. And this is kind of just not on the topic of being, on which you can be, like DaRon could have been burnt out from this guy, period. But basically, you have people in the field that, and this is going to probably hurt a lot of people. But from what I've seen and what DaRon's seen, 99% of the people in the field are not good at what they do.
Yeah.
And we witnessed it.
Yeah.
It took me a minute to understand that, thanks to this guy. But 99% of the people are not good in the field. And they're either in it for the wrong reasons. They think they're great. And another problem that we experienced is a guy who thought he knew everything. Thought we was the best since sliced bread. Nobody could be good. Nobody understood what he was talking about. And we have years of experience in this, especially DaRon. I mean, he has over 20, 30 years of this field. And myself, 15 to 16 years, just doing different things. And, this guy's like, oh, yeah, no, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Even though I'm showing him, you can show somebody the proof dead in their face and they still don't believe you know what you're doing. But they would come back and ask you for help when they needed help. Or they couldn't hold a client meeting, a debrief meeting, or whatever that may be. They couldn't talk or explain what they found, or they didn't know how to find anything, or they couldn't find anything at all. So you have a lot of people that have this where people, they want to feel that they're up their peers with the person they're with. They want to feel like they're there. Or sometimes they don't feel like they're there and they have this defense mode. And again, we're trying to help you, especially if you have somebody that's senior. We're trying to help you get to the level that you want to be, but you have to let people help you. We don't think that same in this situation. If you are a security person or a pen tester or whatever you are, somebody senior over you or a leader or trying to help you, doesn't mean that he thinks that your baby's ugly either. Yeah. Doesn't mean that he thinks your skills are bad. Nobody's calling you a noob, whether you're a noob or not. only you know what your skills are. But at the same time, I think people who are in it don't want to admit that they're not as good as they think they are. And that's 99% of the industry. And there's 1% of the industry that are really, really good at what they do.
Well, and to that point, just to further your point, a lot of that burnout really does occur as far as the good people are concerned because they're picking up the slack. And I was implying that, but you're exactly right to state that point blank, because I don't think a lot of people realize that when I have to cover for your insecurities, your ineptitude, and your failures as an IT security or whatever you want to call yourself professional, then I have to take on your work and I have to now act as that front man for you. Now that's fine if we're in a mentor-mentee relationship where that's expected and I'm your leader. To a degree, I still have to be able to rely on you at least a little bit. But when what you're doing is either purposely going behind your peer or cohorts or, you know, your boss's back and you're wrecking things for them, that burns people out real fast, especially when management then fails to do something about it. So I know in my case, I went to my management and I gave them actual concrete examples with actual written documentation, and my management punted. They punted hard. This was a bad organization, and so that's what management did rather than handle the situation. And that burns out your good people. So if you do have problem children, real problem children in your group, in your team, and this is regardless of the industry, and everyone is having to pick up the slack, then you need to cut them. And that's, I think, one of the biggest issues right now is there's this huge push for more bodies. We need more bodies. And I keep saying, I don't want more bodies. I want more talent. Bodies are of no use. Bodies weigh me down. I have to drag the dead bodies, and that's no fun. Having picked up dead bodies and carried them, they're very heavy in real life and metaphorically speaking.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's I don't understand why you have this big push. For example, ISC squared. They set out this big survey trying to create a new certification for entry-level security folks. Right. And I was going, isn't that what the SSCP is for? No, apparently not. Apparently not. They want a whole new one specifically to this. But why? Why? What are you going to test them on? If they're so entry level, what are you testing them on? All you're doing is giving people a certification to lie.
What's the point of see, this goes back to my thing about certifications, as we talk about. People are going to be hurt who has millions of certifications. I could see you have a stack shit full load of certification, and I still don't believe shit that you do.
Right.
And I say that because that's just, what is that? Is that impressing me? Does that show anything? You know, that doesn't show that you know what you're doing.
Right.
It just shows you know how to take a freaking test.
Right.
And I've known people who has tons of certifications and can't hack a box.
Right.
Can't hack a lick. Can't hack their way out of a cardboard box. I mean, come on now. So that shows nothing to me. And all you guys are doing is wasting your money.
Right.
You know,
right.
Ask yourself, is there the people that are hacking your box, do you think they have certification? A lot of them are script kiddies, but I'm just saying the real good people, do you think a lot of them are just worried about a certification?
No, in fact, actually, they usually can't get one because it's a violation of the ethics agreement that they have to sign.
Right. So a lot of the hackers that are hacking right now, they have no certification to hack better than a lot of the people in the industry right now. Yeah. And again, going back to some of the bullshit that we see with the botnets and this stuff, and they're using C2 servers, definitely C2 servers. They don't use any command and control servers. What the hell is that? That's not even a term in underground. Like, what is that?
No.
You know what I'm saying? I understand. Maybe it's just taking a reference from the Army or something to DOD. I don't know. You would know more than I do, but it just want to sound cool. We're command and control server.
Right.
So, get out of here.
Right.
You know, so my thing
it's like advanced persistent threat.
Oh, yeah. That's bull crap. That's baloney.
It sounds cool.
they do all these things to sound cool, to make it look cool, to get your money, and you spend all this money, and then you're like, oh man,
It's to win
okay, I got this
contracts.
thing. Yeah, I mean, if you work for the government, then you might have to. That's fine. That's one thing. But for real,
It bleeds into the commercial world.
yeah.
And then all the kids are doing it.
If you want to stroke your ego, great. You know, like I really don't have certifications. And then when I paid for one of the certifications, I was very disappointed. I would never waste my money again. Certifications are for people who really want to stroke their ego and show that they look good. That's it. And I'm not saying it for people who really like it. If that's what you love doing, that's great. If it makes you feel better at night, that's great. But it still doesn't show me that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if I was somebody hiring you, I don't want to see all those certifications. To me, that just shows me you're garbage. You know, I need to see your skill set. I need to see you. I need to know that you know what you're doing.
Yes.
I need to know how you go about doing things. Like, that doesn't mean shit.
Well,
even a degree.
Right. You're exactly right. And to your point, there's a term for it, which I'm not going to use because but cert and then insert woman of the night. and you can tell on someone's resume because it's certification. I mean, and it's just one after the other, and there's very little gap in between them. And oftentimes they have nothing to do with their job and they have no experience tied to it. And it's just certification farming is what they're doing. And that's not of any use. And that's not going to solve our problem. That is not the way out. The way out is to stop burning out your current professionals through ridiculous schedules. You know, running a penetration test on any piece of software worth running a penetration test, and I say that a little tongue-in-cheek there, usually is going to take more than 2 weeks. Usually it's going to take significant amount of time, and you can't sit there and shortchange these things. Running a proper security assessment runs into the same exact thing. A proper security assessment takes a very lengthy period of time. That's just how it is. You can't do it like that. It doesn't work.
Yeah, like there's people who have said that you can hack in a couple minutes and get like, what? Like, that's not true. You know, that's why I say what you see in the movies is not real. We are not hacking things in a couple of seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. It takes time. And if you really want to find a lot of good juicy stuff, it's going to take even longer time. It's not easy as people think.
Yeah.
People think it's easy. Maybe it's easy for web apps. That's an easy thing to do. You can sit and I can do that with my eyes closed.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's not an easy thing. And in this field, not only that, people are shunned away because of diversity, like minorities. You know how we need to start getting different races in the field and stop shaming people. Like, people don't want to join the field because they feel like because they're not as good as this person, they're never going to amount to shit, and they can't get in this field. They can't do it, so they go into other areas. Same for computer science.
Right.
This whole weeding out the good and the best. You don't know who's good. They haven't even reached their potential. They don't even know what their potential and their ceiling is.
Right.
You don't know. How can you weed out somebody? Like, soon as you get to data structure and algorithms and all this shit, that's when they start trying to weed you out and weed out the good and the bad, and you can't take it. What do you mean? You don't know. And like a lot of people thought that I wouldn't be good or good at my job. They end up saying to me like years later, like, man, I didn't even know you would be like at this level. Like, yeah, you didn't give me a chance. It's the same way in information security. You're not giving the person a chance. You're just judging a book by its cover. You know what I'm saying? That's what we need to stop doing in this field is, you know, flaming everybody or judging people by the way they look, their race. You know, if we're hackers, we're all hackers. It is what it is, no matter if you're a noob or not. The fact that you can't even say that, hey, I don't even know this stuff, man. Can you help me? You can't get better and grow if you can't learn when you don't know something.
Yeah.
When to ask for help.
Right. That's exactly right. And that's one of the keys here. So if I want to be very clear on a point you'd said, going back to it, we don't want bodies just for the sake of bodies. And I don't want diversity just for the sake of diversity. What Roniel's really saying is accurate in that we need to be more tolerant and accepting. But what he's not saying is to hire someone just because their sex, just because their skin color or this or that. What we're really talking about is don't push people out because of those factors, and work to ensure that when you dragnet to try to hire, you're not just picking places where they would be of one kind. And that's not just racially or sex or any of that other kind of stuff. That's mentally, mindset, because we've talked about it before. Different perspectives, that diversity of thought is really the key here. And females make up 50% of the population. I say this all the time. Females make up 50% of the population. I would love for more females to enter IT. Not because they're women, but because they're 50% of the population. Therefore, they're 50% of the brain power, 50% of the potential passion and skill, desire to really do well and move us forward. And if 50% of our population isn't interested, not because they can't do well, but because they don't know about it, or because they don't think it's tolerant toward them, or this or that, then I mean, how are we going to move forward? That's terrible. That's 50% of your population gone.
Yep. It's bad. Like I said, and that's what I really were talking about. It's the perspective. Different perspective, different creativity, different mindsets. Align will give you a different perspective on how to protect your application, your security. Like, everybody thinks differently. So bringing that in and accepting it will broaden our field, and like you said, it'll be great to see more women in this field.
Right.
But women are so afraid to get in this field because they don't get paid the same as men. They don't get looked at the same as men. And this is a more predominantly men field, and they don't. Every time I talk to a woman about getting into it, I just was somebody before that does my hair. She's asking me, how do I get in IT? How do I get into security? And her thoughts and fears about it because, how they treat women and how this field treat women. And it's not fair. So we gotta change some things.
Well, and unfortunately, some of that is a legacy of the past. Some of that is current. Yeah. Some of that's a legacy of the past. And I don't know that our current efforts are... I think our current efforts are similar to Hollywood's response, right? Yeah. Well, if I put women as the face of this or women as the face of that, then suddenly, magically, more women are going to join the field. No, that's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about. The actual environment, the work environment, and feeling comfortable, feeling valued within that work environment, feeling like you're part of the team, feeling like no one's looking at you and saying, you have to be more assertive. Okay, so to pick a stereotype against women, you have to be more assertive. You're not assertive enough. In general, for security, is it ideal if you are assertive? I would say if you are selectively assertive, yes, meaning you know when to turn it on and you know when to turn it off. But I'd say that's most jobs. It's not I need to appease the customer job. Security is I need to help them do what they need to do to get there, to get secure in a cost-effective, time-effective, resource-effective fashion, whatever that is, and I create that pathway. So what we're talking about isn't necessarily tell women they need to be more assertive, tell this person he or she needs to be more assertive, but help them see the light as to not when to be assertive, but here's the pathway we're headed toward. And you know what? If you have if you have someone who's good at it, but they're not assertive, but they're good at security, they can find vulnerabilities, they can spot them real easily, or they can do this or that, hire them anyway, and just have someone else be the front man or front woman, as the case may be.
Yeah, because you can train them to be where you want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
It is evident that you can train somebody to be as good as you want them to be. And a lot of people are just looking for that that mentorship or that
Right.
person to help or that place to give them the chance.
Right.
I know myself, like I had been trying for years and years to get the opportunity, and I had just been, researching and just learning and learning as much as I could. And then I finally got that chance, and luckily I've continued to put in that work. But again, that goes back to something I want to also touch on before we end this off. But women or men, anybody, um, the biggest issue that I think that with the resource issue as well is that people don't want to hire people as we've seen, because they don't really know what they're doing. They give people, the women and men, a bad name. It's a bad taste in your mouth. Like for instance, one of our directors from a previous company, she was horrible. She was bad. I don't think that anybody would ever hire a woman director at that place again.
She was a
And
diversity hire. I'll
yeah,
say it. In all honesty, she was a diversity hire.
yeah.
She fit
Which
2 check boxes.
but she was horrible. She did not know what she was talking about. I mean, again, I have to say, this lady said, anybody that knows Nmap out there, that Nmap stands for algorithms on a client call. That and I'm on there, and I'm like, and she's asking me, I'm like, what do I do? Do I tell
Right.
my director that she's stupid or she don't know what she's talking about? I, I didn't even want to be. I didn't want to say nothing because I knew that she did not know what she was talking about. And when you tell her, when you would sit down and tell her that you can't say these things are not correct. Let us do the things for you, and handle that work, and then you can just direct us on which way you want to go. No, no, I'm the director. This is what I was like. You're making us look bad.
Right.
And then the higher ups, they didn't listen to us.
No.
So again, people like that make it look bad for other people who's trying to get in the field, especially women, who's trying to get in the field and be, get a higher pay or, get at a certain level. And people like that will ruin it for everybody.
They do, and they also make so not only are you less likely to hire someone like her, and unfortunately the first places most people go is, oh well, she was a diversity hire, which is accurate, and therefore I don't want to hire this person, this person, this person. But it also makes it harder for the people who are like her already in the field, because now they're not going to be taken as seriously. So it's not just her whole team that gets destroyed. It's also, for example, and this, it may not be right, but this is how people think. And that's the most important part of all of this. This is how people think. This is how people naturally operate. Well, I saw this person and they were hired in as a diversity hire. Therefore, Roniel must also be a diversity hire. DaRon must also be a diversity hire. That whole team doesn't know what they're doing, because if they're going to hire this person as a diversity hire, then these other people must be. And it gives the rest of us bad names. It makes the rest of us look bad. Diversity hire is always bad. It's always wrong. You hire the right person for the job, period. It's called diversity of search, diversity of your interviews, and ask the right questions, not stupid questions that have nothing to do with it, and sit there and say, okay, well, this is cybersecurity or this is whatever security. I'm not going to cut out the system administrators, because there are different IT paths to security, and a system administrator could very well be very good at application security, because they could also have a computer science degree. They could, and you just don't know it, have experience with applications and code and all of this other stuff, because they may have helped the developers debug their stuff. So it's diversity within the hiring process by looking across more than what you normally would, expanding that mindset to say, I'm willing to accept a wider net under the assumption that I'm going to get bigger, better fish.
Mm-hmm.
Can't catch a whale with a small net.
So with that being said, DaRon, can you list the key things that you think people should do to fix this, or companies can do to fix this shortage?
Sure. So some of the big ones that come to mind are: look toward good folks with a solid background. That background needs to be in something technical if it's a technical field. but it doesn't necessarily have to be a 1-for-1.
So what if you, and just then we'll get back to your key things, but what if you have got a master's degree in good old, what is it? SANS, ComSec degree. You know, they have their own.
I know they have their own degree. No. Look, I like SANS courses as much as the next person. They're expensive, but they're better than most that you're going to find out. They're actually still very cursory. They're all of them, all of their courses, all of their certifications, they're all very cursory or surface level kind of deal. And as a result, the data is oftentimes wrong. But no, their degree program it's a no. It's an easy pass.
Okay. All right. Back to your key things. So what's your next one?
So the next thing I would say is look for diversity of thought and look for hard workers. Look for people who are real passionate about the field, but don't worry necessarily about minor details that have nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with security or nothing to do with their job or something that you can smooth over, right? So if someone's maybe not the most personable, so long as they're not abrasive, maybe that's something you can work on. If they're abrasive, maybe you pass. It depends on if you think you can work with this individual. So what we're talking about is understanding that we can fill the gaps with people that are probably being turned down, that probably have the skills and capabilities and passion to do it, but they're being turned down for illegitimate reasons.
Okay.
So keep an eye out for that.
I have one thing to add to your list.
Please.
Find people who know they know nothing. I say that to say because there's too many people in the street now that think they know everything.
Yeah.
And they find out later on in life they don't know shit.
Yeah.
So, you know, the thing is to be good in this field is to know that there's some uncertainty, like things you don't know. And the curiosity, which we talked about, is what makes you better, because the curiosity is what makes you want to go and ramble and take things apart and figure out what's going on under the hood to find these creative things or vulnerabilities that people are, it's hard for people to find. And those are the type of people you want that has a really strong curiosity for things and know they don't know things. That's the whole point when it comes to hacking anyway. It's knowing that you don't know something and you're trying to get something and learn something and trying to get it to do what you want it to do. So having that curiosity is key.
Exactly. I think the last bit, and this is probably critical, is to stop the hemorrhaging. Stop the hemorrhaging. And the only way you're going to stop the hemorrhaging is figure out why you're losing people. And that's pay, that's you're burning them out through one thing or another, that's you have people who are no good and they're destroying the team or they're destroying the environment. Pay attention to personality. You can't just hodgepodge a team together. You can't ever. I mean, I've hired a lot of teams, high functioning teams, and in every case I took technical skill, quality, mindset, how they think, but also their personality into account. Because if you have people who don't mesh, I mean, at some point, it's going to cause a problem.
Yeah.
So stop the blood loss. You've got to stop the blood loss. It's just like in first aid.
Yeah, I agree. Any more thoughts from your?
That's it for me.
This has concluded our podcast. And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and comment below. If you just want to flame the hell out of DaRon, feel free. If you want to ask him any questions about why he hates white hats or threat hunters and all of that, feel free to comment down below. He loves to chat with you guys about that. Thank you for watching our podcast. We'll see you in the next one. I'm Roniel.
I'm DaRon.
Later.
Have fun.